Half a day and welcome to Module 3, Working with Diverse Learners. This module is one component of our Teachers Distance Learning Training series. For the advanced participants, this may be refresher information. However, please take advantage of this presentation as it may give you some ideas about how you may want to share the information or strategies with your parents or students as you plan for the 3 models of learning. So the purpose of this module is to give basic information for special education, English as a second language, and gifted and talented education to help support lesson planning for the 3 models of learning. It is our intention that by the end of this session you will identify characteristics of diverse learners, identify the challenges of diverse learners, acquire strategies to support diverse learners, and last, identify considerations to support diverse learners with the 3 models of learning. Please bear in mind that the information you will be receiving may be a lot to digest, but as you begin to plan for the school year, your school's instructional coach, the Division of Curriculum and Instruction, the resource room teacher, ESL, and GATE teachers at your school site, as well as your principals, are resources for you to collaborate with to help you plan for your students. In this video segment, we will be focusing on giving you information for your students with special education needs. Please take the time to view the other video segments which focus on information for students who have English as a second language and the video segment for your gifted and talented students. Although we're not providing guidance on the mandates of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, also known as IDEA, nor are we speaking on behalf of the Division of Special Education, it is important to know that the IDEA is the federal law that governs what the district does in respect to special education. So what then is special education? Special education is specially designed instruction at no cost to parents, which is also known as a free and appropriate public education, to meet the unique needs of a child with a disability. There are 13 disabilities identified in IDEA. However, for today's session, we will focus on bringing awareness to the 3 highest disabilities that GDOE provides services and supports to. They are autism, other health impairment, and specific learning disabilities. Take a look at this chart that shows the statistics of the number of students in Guam receiving special education services as of December 1st, 2019. This chart shows the number of students with an IEP that the Guam Department of Education services. Of the 1,854 students who were receiving special education and related services, 1,013 students are identified with a specific learning disability, 241 students with autism, and 212 students with other health impairment. Let's talk more about these 3 highly populated disabilities. So what is specific learning disability, or SLD? It's a disorder of one or more basic psychological processes involved in understanding spoken or written language that impacts students' ability to listen, speak, read, write, spell, or do math calculations. The term includes such conditions as perpetual disability, that is, how what is seen and heard is perceived, brain injury dysfunction, developmental aphasia, which are conditions following a stroke or an injury, as well as progressively developed neurological disease. But please note, SLD does not include learning problems that are primarily the result of visual, hearing, or motor disabilities and the like, as these students may not have the deficit of psychological processing. One common characteristic is they are slow to learn the connections between letters and sounds, which affect their ability to read basic words. Students with a specific learning disability may make consistent reading and spelling errors, including letter reversals, B and D, inversions, M and W, transpositions, felt, left, and substitutions, house and home. Many students with a specific learning disability are slow to remember facts and learn new skills. As a result, they rely heavily on memorization. Although they rely heavily on memorization, they often display weak memory skills. Listed are some common medically diagnosed types of specific learning disabilities. Dyslexia means that a person's brain has trouble processing letters and sounds that makes it tough to break words into separate speech sounds, like b, a, t for bat. When it's hard to do that, it's really hard to connect speech sounds to different letters, like b for bee, and then blend them into new words. Dyscalculia is a condition that affects the ability to acquire mathematical skills. Dyscalculic learners may have difficulty understanding simple number concepts, lack a natural grasp of numbers, and have problems learning number facts and procedures. Dysgraphia is a writing disability in which a person finds it hard to form letters or write within a defined space. Here is a quick and fun activity that gives us a glimpse into how a student with a specific learning disability may process information. I would like for you to say the color rather than read the word. Example, column 1, word 1. Instead of saying yellow, you would respond with purple. Please take a moment to do this activity, starting with row 1, working left to right, then moving to the next row. Try your best to respond as quickly and fluently as possible. You may begin now. If you found it a bit challenging to say the color of the word rather than the written word, then what you are experiencing is something that many students with specific learning disabilities go through. The words themselves have a strong influence over your ability to say the color. The interference between the different information that your brain receives causes a problem. This phenomenon that you just experienced is known as the Stroop effect. One theory that neuroscientists use to explain this theory is that the brain reads words faster than it recognizes color. The information about color and word compete as they reach the brain, creating delays in processing. This is a writing piece from one of our high school students. The teacher gave the class a prompt, and the students were expected to respond. Try your best to read it and take note of the different characteristics that may be present and are common to a child with a specific learning disability. I will give you a minute to read the student's writing. You may begin now. As you are looking at this, some of the things that you may have noticed were misspellings, reversal of letters, difficulty writing within a defined space, and an atypical spacing between words. It's evident that this student has much to say, but also some challenges are definitely present. The teacher had the student read his prompt as the teacher transcribed what he was reading. This is exactly what the student read off of his paper. I suspect that the child with a learning disability must frequently experience an Alice in Wonderland existence. Often we find that he must cope with an unstable world, inconsistent adults, and haphazard perceptions. He's confused by the crazy symbols we give him, pressured by the length of time to do it, and frustrated by his repeated failures. He does not learn the traditional way, and so we must teach him differently. As you can see, this is a very thoughtful paper. The vocabulary, creativity, insight, being able to communicate his thoughts and his awareness of his disability were communicated very well. In fact, you could probably say that his writing is a little more thoughtful than most students his same age. How awesome is that he was able to take a piece of literature and compare it to his own experiences. Before we discuss accommodations for students with specific learning disabilities, it's important to mention that accommodations are things that are given to a child that helps them learn without changing what it is that they are going to learn. Sort of like leveling the playing field. We will discuss some common accommodations that may be used not just for the face-to-face learner, but also for those students who may be assessing their education online or by hard copy packet. Some common accommodations for presentation include providing audio recordings, providing large print, reducing the number of items per page or line, providing a designated reader or presenting instructions orally. Allow the student to give verbal responses, for answers to be dictated to a scribe. Allow for the use of a tape recorder to capture responses. Permit responses to be given via computer or permit answers to be recorded directly into a test booklet. Remember that the accommodations may have to be explained to the student's parents or whoever will be supporting the student at home. The testing accommodations for students with a specific learning disability should be communicated clearly and thoroughly to parents who will support them in the home. A testing schedule may include administering a test in several timed sessions or over several days, allow subtests to be taken in a different order, and administering a test at a specific time of the day. Some accommodations for students with specific learning disabilities include allowing frequent breaks or extending allotted time for tasks and tests. Teachers may also provide preferential seating, provide special lighting or acoustics, provide a space with minimal distractions, administer tests in small group settings, or administer tests in a private room or alternative test site. Autism is a developmental disability. It affects 3 areas of a person. It affects their verbal and nonverbal communication, social interactions, and behavior which adversely affects their educational performance and are typically evident by 3 years old. There are also other characteristics of autism which include repetitive activities and stereotype movements, a resistance to any new environment, changes to new personnel or in their daily routines, and unusual responses to sensory experiences. Some statistics and facts are that autism occurs in estimates of 1 within 59 live births. It is 5 times more prevalent in males than females. This is evident in our local stats. In GDOE, we have 196 males and 45 females. Although autism is present before 3 years old, diagnosis often occurs at a later age. In GDOE, we are able to evaluate as young as 18 months. Although every Every child with autism is different. There are several common behavior challenges and characteristics. Some students display stereotypes or repetitive motor movements. This challenge can take the form of rocking, finger flicking, tapping, and flapping of their arms. Another challenge could be insistence of sameness or an inflexibility adherence to routines. An example could be the student's need to eat the same food every day, sitting in the same seat every day in class, or following the same routine every day. They also experience highly restricted fixated interests that are abnormal. For instance, they may have a strong attachment or preoccupation to objects that are unusual, like spinning the tires of a toy car or continuously flushing the toilet just to see the water swirl. Some also experience unusual interest in sensory aspects of the environment, like, for instance, smelling or touching of objects. Although there are three areas of deficit in autism, we've combined social and communication as a challenge. A common challenge in this deficit area is the lack of social emotional reciprocity. You may see this in form of not being able to carry a conversation or a failure to initiate or respond to social interactions. Another challenge is a deficit in nonverbal communicative behaviors used for social interaction. The student with autism may have limited eye contact or an unusual speech pattern. Some also experience deficits in developing, maintaining, and understanding relationships. Sometimes they may say things that offend others without knowing they are offending them. Some also have challenges sharing imaginative play or making friends. Here are some accommodations for students with autism. Provide clearly established and ordered routines. Provide a schedule, either written or visual. Provide visual or written rather than auditory instructions. Allow the use of earplugs or noise canceling headsets in loud, noisy areas. Provide warning and preparation when changes are anticipated. When providing accommodations for students with autism, it is important to remember that these accommodations will vary from child to child because all children are different. Each child will require different accommodations from another child with autism. Remember, as said earlier, accommodations will have to be explained to the student's parents or whoever will be supporting the student at home. It is important to provide consistent rules. Mean what you say and say what you mean. Here is a video about Carly. She is a young lady with autism. Let's watch this video and have a sneak peek into Carly's world.
I can't wait for a coffee. Oh, hello, barista.
What do you girls want?
Skim soy latte?
Taryn, soy can't be skim.
Hot chocolate? Orange juice?
No, Dad, I want a coffee. Hot chocolate? Great.
So, I was thinking of going to Sarah's later. Could you give me a ride?
Yeah, sure. Are you cool with taking your sister?
Yeah.
Wait, what? I have my own plan.
Carly.
Okay, I'll see you tonight, okay?
Focus. Hey, sweetheart. It's okay. Carly. How can I help?
Although Carly is not able to convey her thoughts and feelings to her family, once she got her hands on a laptop, she was able to share her thoughts, feelings, and frustrations. Now let's talk about other health impairment, or OHI. Other health impairment is an umbrella term that encompasses hundreds of types of medical conditions. But what's central to all the disabilities falling under other health impairment is that the child must have limited strength, vitality, or alertness due to chronic health impairment, which negatively affects their educational performance. Listed are just a few common medical conditions that some of our students who are eligible for special education and related services experience: asthma, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD, attention deficit disorder, or ADD, epilepsy, diabetes, and lupus. Today we will focus on ADHD because ADHD is a common condition that our students under OHI experience. It's important to note that many of these accommodations may be used in the home for our online and hard copy students, as well as our face-to-face students. Accommodations targeting the classroom environment could be the use of flexible seating. For instance, rather than requiring the student to sit on his chair, allow him to stand at his desk while working. Find a quiet space in the classroom or in the home that is away from high foot traffic. This will help minimize distractions. A couple of ways to help the student with their organizational skills are to provide an extra set of books to keep at home or color code materials for each subject. When working on completing tests or assignments, you can minimize the number of items on a worksheet. We also suggest to grade student work on content and not neatness. You can also provide the student with alternate ways to respond. Maybe rather than writing in their answer, you can have them say the answer orally. When giving instructions, some accommodations to consider is to not only give directions out loud, but also present instruction in writing and then have the student repeat it. Another one is to keep all instructions simple, clear, and concrete. If your student is in need of visuals to maintain or grab their interest, then use it. To help manage behaviors, you may want to use nonverbal communication to get the student's attention. Maybe a hand on the shoulder or a light tap on the desk. If the student displays inappropriate behaviors, it is a good practice to talk through the behavior problems one-on-one. Discuss what are more appropriate behaviors. Here is an activity that will help us gain some insight into the world of the child with ADHD.
Okay, put away your books. We're gonna play a game. In this game, we're gonna find homes for the animals. Listen to me carefully. In front of you are some animal cards and a grid. I'm gonna tell you where to move each animal card so every animal ends up in the right place on the grid. Are you ready? Everyone take the snake card. Now look at the grid. Put the snake card on the camel in the grid. Got it? Good. Now take the bird card and put it on the kangaroo in the grid. Dylan, are you with us? Okay. Now take the monkey. Put it on the floor.
I don't have a monkey.
Is that yours on the floor? Now find the kangaroo card. It belongs on the
He's
floor.
mom's friend too, remember?
Emma and Maddie, pay attention. Dylan, are you with us? Okay, now everyone, look at the octopus.
Ew, weird.
In your grid. Now look for the elephant. Jacob and Sophia, please stop. Put the elephant on the pole. When you see the octopus, I want you to place the rhino on
We
top
saw
of it.
Dino. I saw rhinoceros at the zoo when I went with my
Okay,
mom.
put the monkey on the... Jaden, don't interrupt.
I don't have any
And then
animals
put the shark on
left.
the
Miss
elephant and on the
Aldano,
shark.
my
Put the
game
cat.
is missing a piece.
Ready? Now flip your cards over. What do you see?
Some of the things you may have noticed is that as the teacher was going through the directions and activities, the students started to become distracted with their surroundings, even picking up the sound of the big truck outside of the classroom. This ultimately affects their ability to focus and follow along with the lesson. So we've just presented the 3 highest disabilities that GDOE provides services and supports to. Let's now talk about some general strategies. We've listed down 4 general strategies that we should consider as we prepare to teach the student with a disability. Many of these strategies are used in the resource room on a daily basis. However, please know that these strategies may also be used when planning for students who may be assessing their education through the online or hard copy model. These general strategies are: communicate often, clearly, and consistently with student and family. Use explicit instruction. Provide visual supports like visual schedules and visual aids. Use differentiated instruction. And details on this and explicit instruction will be provided later in this presentation. Before developing and considering lesson plan design, it is important that as teachers we communicate with students and their families. A good first step to begin with is the Family Support Plan, which was developed by GDOE, Division of Special Education. This is especially helpful to use if you have a student that is accessing their education online or through hard copy. This document was launched on Thursday, July 16, 2020. It is a plan that helps us to accommodate the student and their families that is conducive to their needs. It helps us to tailor the delivery of instruction for each student. It has some driving questions that we should always consider as we prepare to work with a child with a disability. These questions are geared towards the family and those who will be providing support to the student. You may access this document on Special Education's website. What are some things that we can do to communicate with our students and their families? Make the personal connections with the family. If they are unable to access video calls, reach out to them by phone or text. Create and provide some training resources in the areas of communication and literacy for family use. Be sure to schedule regular meetings with the family. In these meetings, you may discuss progress, address concerns, adjust the learning plan if needed, or just to check in with them so they know you are there to provide support. Keep a log of each time you contact the family. Be sure to keep note of resources they may need and follow-ups if needed. Use language that can be understood. Try to avoid using acronyms or educational jargon. If you need things to be interpreted, use interpretation tools or you may request for an interpreter. If the family has access to watch videos, use videos that demonstrate or model strategies you want the families to try. You can even video record yourself and share it. Ask them what are the child's current successes and challenges. Use that information to inform your next steps. And last, it is important to remind the family that it is okay if it is not perfect or if things do not get completed. Explicit instruction is a highly effective instructional strategy. It is a way to deliver direct and structured instruction to students from kindergarten to high school. It helps make lessons crystal clear and shows students how to start and succeed on a task. There are 3 sequential steps: modeling, guided or directed practice, and independent practice. Explicit instruction begins with modeling, which promotes the understanding of the learning objectives for students. This step consists of the teacher demonstrating a task for the student and describing exactly what is being done as it is being done. The goal of the modeling step is for the teacher to explicitly state the what, why, how, when, and where of what they are doing. The information is presented in small units in a graduated sequence, usually ranging from simple to more complex, not only to meet the working memory limitation of students with learning disabilities, but also to enhance the connection between new and prior knowledge. The teacher can then use examples of what to do and what not to do to more directly highlight the skills they are trying to teach the student. This will help facilitate the student's understanding of the learning objectives, which in turn will improve the quality of modeling you provide. So let's just say that Johnny's goal for the next week is to independently make himself a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Now, I know that I'm going to implement explicit instruction to help him reach his goal. So the first thing I'm going to do is model it for him. As his teacher, I'm going to make sure that I am verbalizing my thoughts out loud. The what? What am I going to make? A peanut butter and jelly sandwich. The why? We are going to make the peanut butter and jelly sandwich to help me do things in a sequential order. The how? How am I going to make this sandwich? I'm going to think out loud or verbalize my thought process so that Johnny can not only see my actions, but hear and listen to how I am tackling this task. I may have some kind of graphic organizer to organize my thoughts. I also may have some pictures that I can use as I complete my graphic organizer, other than just writing in the answer. Maybe I might say out loud, what are some things I need to make my sandwich? Oh yeah, I need bread, peanut butter, jelly, a plate, a butter knife, and some napkins. Or, I know that before I touch food, I should always have clean hands. What should I do before I start making the sandwich? Oh yeah, I should wash my hands. You may then continue to verbalize step-by-step instructions on how to make the sandwich while modeling or showing Johnny how to make the sandwich. The when and where. We are going to make the peanut butter and jelly sandwich in class by the end of the week. It is important to remember that at this step, the teacher is not asking the student the questions. The teacher is verbalizing the questions to herself, answering her own questions, and then demonstrating the task. After modeling, the next step of explicit instruction is guided practice, also referred to as directed practice. This allows students to succeed in achieving the desired learning objectives. It also helps students to gain the confidence and motivation necessary to continue their learning. It allows students not only the opportunity to try the tasks that were modeled, but ensures that they receive feedback. Guided practice helps students to verify, adjust, consolidate, and to deepen their understanding of the learning taking place by connecting their new learning with that which is already present in their long-term memories. Now, going back to the example of independently making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. This step will require the teacher to guide the students. The thought process would still be verbalized, but now students are being asked the questions, and together with the teacher, the students are answering and trying the task. Finally, independent practice allows students with support from the teacher to put themselves in new learning situations where they can apply what they have understood from the modeling and guided practice steps. This final learning step provides students with an opportunity to test out their understanding in order to obtain the highest level of mastery possible. This step also identifies any students who may be in need of some additional support before they move on. What this step looks like is now the student working on the task independently. When implementing visual supports, make sure you have the student's attention before delivering an instruction or asking a question. Consider the student's processing challenges and timing. For example, begin an instruction with the student's name to call his attention. This increases the likelihood that he may be attentive by the time you deliver the direction. Avoid complex verbal directions. Information and discussion. Keep instructions short or give information in chunks. Give positive directions to allow for incomplete language processing. Minimize the use of don't and stop. For example, stay on the sidewalk can be much more effective than don't walk on the grass. For a student who might not hear the don't, or for ones who aren't sure where the acceptable place to walk might be. Allow wait time. Be prepared to wait for a response, whether it is an action or answer. Avoid immediately repeating an instruction or inquiry. Sometimes it is helpful to think of a student with auditory processing challenges like a computer. When it is processing, hitting the command again does not make it go any faster, but rather sends it back to the beginning to start the processing all over again. Model and shape correct responses to build understanding. For example, teach the meaning of stop. Run on the playground holding hands with the student. Say stop. Stop yourself and the student. Repeat until you can fade the hand holding and then fade the modeling. Supplement verbal information with pictures, visual schedules, gestures, visual examples, and written discussions. When planning lessons, teachers should think about what students should take away from the lesson. Once this is determined, you, as the teacher, should then find ways in which you will make learning take place. Children have different learning styles, so your teaching practices should reflect that. By differentiating instruction, you recognize that students sometimes need more than one way of teaching in order to understand a lesson. For example, if you are teaching your class about the 3 branches of government, a student who has a reading disability could probably benefit from being provided leveled reading material, watching a video, or listening to a song. A student with a disability in decoding may benefit from listening to an audio that goes along with the text that he or she is reading. So in a nutshell, differentiated instruction means tailoring instruction to meet individual needs. Teachers who use differentiated instruction tailor their teaching approach to match their students' learning styles. All the students have the same learning goal, but the teaching approach varies depending on how students prefer to learn. Instead of using a one-size-fits-all approach, a teacher uses a variety of methods to teach. This can include teaching students in small groups or in one-on-one session. There are 4 areas where teachers can differentiate instruction. The first is in content, figuring out what a student needs to learn and which resources will help him do so. Number 2 is process, activities that help students make sense of what they learn. 3, product, a way for students to show what they know. And number 4, the learning environment, how the classroom feels and how the class works together. Now, what we would like to do is go over a sample lesson plan that addresses the needs for a student with a disability. The information on the slide is an excerpt from Common Lesson Design Parts and Guidance, that we would like you to keep focused on when creating a lesson format. It's important to discuss this before we can discuss a sample lesson plan for the student with a disability. Please ensure to write all your instructions for your lesson in parent-student friendly language. For example, you may consider to use clearer words, like using show instead of identify. You may provide clear and concise instructions that are not subject to interpretation or avoid using any teacher jargon. So the structure to consider for your format is comprised in this three-part guidance. With this guidance, you'll find that part 1 focuses on the what and why of the learning. You'll need an introduction to the lesson, what you will be learning and practicing this week. Why is the knowledge or skill important for me or my child to learn? What activities will I be doing to learn or practice this knowledge or skills? And what is included in this lesson packet? Part 2 focuses on the teaching and explanation of the content, reading materials, videos, etc. Keep in mind that when explaining the content or teaching part of your plan that you are explicit in giving instructions. Ensure you give step-by-step clear directions and the materials are organized and easy to access. Part 3 focuses on the activities and application of the learning. Here's where your handouts, your graphic organizers, your worksheets, your projects with step-by-step instructions are written out. Regular opportunities for questions from parents or students. Here's where teachers give feedback on assignments. Here's where the implementation of strategies and accommodations for exceptional learners happen. That's your exceptional learners, your SpEd, your ESL, and your GATE. Earlier we talked about strategies. The Family Support Plan, which is a recommended document to use by the Division of Special Education, is a good tool to use to identify the needs of the student and their families. Although the division is not requiring this document to be used, it is highly encouraged. This is a completed sample of the Family Support Plan. The document is user-friendly. The questions that are being asked of the parents or families is simple and very straightforward. This document may be used to gather information for the online or hard copy student. Let's quickly review this completed sample. The Family Support Plan, as stated earlier, asks simple and straightforward questions by the teacher of the parent. This sample plan was written for Johnny. The first question asks, what are your current hopes for distance learning? Mom feels that Johnny will be able to maintain his current skills and at least reach his current goals 75% of the way. What are your greatest concerns? Mom's greatest concern is how to provide instructions in place of the teacher. What types of supports would be most useful to you and your child during this time? Video recordings of the teacher providing instruction, and steps for mom to follow after his teacher has provided initial instruction. What does a typical day look like in your home? Well, Johnny wakes up around 9 a.m., brushes his teeth, washes his face, and then eats breakfast. This usually takes Johnny around 30 to 45 minutes. What other supports and services are you receiving during this time? Johnny should be receiving speech and occupational therapy services. Included in this plan is also a daily or weekly distance learning schedule for Johnny. Included in it are specific times in which Johnny will be studying certain subject areas. Also included are brief descriptions of what Johnny will be doing in those subject areas. The plan also includes best ways to contact the teacher and when you can expect to hear from the teacher and how often. So as you can see, this family support plan will help you as the teacher to better plan for Johnny's distance learning. As discussed earlier, This is a sample of a lesson plan framework that addresses the needs of a student with an IEP. The sample framework was written for the typical student, but included in the red print are some suggested accommodations that the teacher may use for their special education student. Some suggested sample accommodations may include a pre-recorded video of the teacher or an online video that introduces the lesson's learning targets aligned with the student's IEP goals. The teacher may also want to use an anchor chart. An anchor chart is a chart with words and/or pictures that explains and depicts the information the teacher is trying to communicate relative to the learning targets. The teacher may also provide an introduction to the lesson or a write-up that includes pictures, if needed, that the parent can share with the student. The teacher will always have to use or speak in student or parent-friendly language. It is important to remember that when giving instructions, they are explicit, clear, and that you try not to use teacher jargon. Here is a guideline for distance learning for students with significant support needs given by the Division of Special Education. Let's take a quick look at the guidelines. As mentioned earlier, it is recommended that when planning for their special education student, the teachers start with a family support plan. These guidelines help with the continued planning for the student. Guideline number 1. Tailor learning and support plans for each student and family. Guideline number 2. Invest direct support to family members via Zoom or Google Chat or Google Meets and online training resources for families, especially in the areas of communication and literacy. Guideline number 3. Help families to identify a daily routine that can work for them and their children. Guideline number 4. Identify engaging interactive activities that families can do with their children that embed communication, literacy, and math concepts. Guideline number 5. Work with families to develop strategies to connect IEP goals to activities. For example, provide a matrix of goals with sample activities. Guideline number 6. For students included in general education settings for all or part of the day, the general education teacher should work with the resource room teacher to ensure students can stay connected to classmates. This can be another opportunity to embed literacy and communication skills using AAC, writing, recorded messages, etc. And last, number 7. Make regular personal connections with the student and encourage other familiar adults from the school to do the same. Now let's look at some schedule samples the Division of Special Education has also provided. This is a suggested daily schedule that a teacher may create for his or her student. It includes specific times for specific activities along with supplemental resources. The schedule is specific to when the learning day begins for the student through the end of the student's learning day. Here is another sample schedule that may be used for students who are accessing their learning online. The schedule is planned for the week and includes specific times for specific subject areas and also includes links for students to access assigned activities. This last sample schedule may be used for students who are accessing their learning through a hard copy packet. This schedule doesn't specify a specific time of the day for the student to begin learning, but does include the amount of time the student must spend daily on an assignment for a specific subject. It also includes brief directions to the activities the teacher has assigned. Here is a link to online resources for student, parent, and teacher use. These resources are provided by the Department of Education, Division of Special Education. This concludes our presentation on working with diverse learners, special education segment. We hope you have found the information useful for helping you plan for your students with special needs this school year. Should you need any further assistance, you may contact your school's special education teachers, instructional coach, principal, or the department's Division of Special Education. I invite you to view additional segments that focus on diverse learners, specifically students with English as a second language, as well as students who are part of the Gifted and Talented Education Program. Thank you for viewing this segment and have a beautiful day.